Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. We have an Algorand ALGO video for you guys today. Guys, Algorand is one that I've added to my portfolio quite recently. It's not something I've held for long at all. I was kind of waiting for the right price points of adding this to my portfolio, and of course that came a few months ago. We'll go into a bit more of the price details shortly and some of the actions that I've taken over the last few days. Of course, the market overall has been increasing nicely. We have had a bit of a pullback and we are now seeing a bit of stability, so it gives us a bit of breathing space to think and talk about that in a bit more detail. And before we go into that, I'm just going to spend a few minutes, literally hopefully a few minutes, because I say this and then I end up talking about 20-25 minutes, but I'm trying my best, try and condense these into smaller videos so I can give you guys more videos on a multitude of topics. So of course the last video we did on Algorand was a few months ago, talking about that Ripio wallet that was built on the Algorand system for the Argentinian population. Absolutely phenomenal statistics and numbers that we went out with there. So yeah, I think we shouted like 45.8 million people in Argentina. So obviously massive opportunity for ecosystems and the opportunity for the infrastructure to really thrive in regions such as Argentina. So we're going to go into a bit of a topic about that, but this time the Dutch bank, which is a very interesting case that has come out quite recently, a case study to emphasize how this can really work on a global scale. Before we do that, guys, don't forget to smash that subscribe button, and of course hit that like button as well if you haven't done so already. Let's go straight into this quick fire topic, guys. So I'm just going to pull this bit of information out here. So Quantos, this is a payment system in the Netherlands, Holland, and quite recently, have announced the digital euro, EURD, through the Quantos digital platform, gets its licensing or its issuance permission as the first regulated and programmable euro ledger tender, which is EURD, on the Algorand network. Now, Netherlands has a population of around 17 million-ish. That was kind of a statistic from about a year or so ago. So again, similar to like the Argentinian market, obviously not as big, but gives you an orientation around actually that's still a lot of people. So if the CBDCs, in this instance, central bank digital currencies or in stable coins, do come into fruition, which they will, it's a question of not when, not if, obviously. We get to this point where if it's something that's forced upon us or it just becomes part of our normal life where we just have to use these things, it really paints a picture. All these numbers that come into fruition. So we've got like Argentina as that big example, here in the Netherlands as well that we're just mentioning now. Of course, many other countries will adopt some form of central bank digital currency or stablecoin on a particular chain. Now, it's not always Algorand. The point being mainly around this topic here as well is the fact that there is not one winner, whether that's across Europe, whether it's across the world. There is not one winner in blockchain. There are a multitude of chains, multitude of solutions from each one, pros and cons, and sometimes the chain is dependent on whatever that country is from, that country in particular, or of course, privacy, data, transparency, all these things come into the fruition. There's the argument about transaction per second, which one will benefit more so than the other. But there's also the conversation around different layers, different frameworks, and the opportunity for cross-chain as well. In previous videos, we talked about IOTA being a big, massive opportunity in the Europeans Blockchain Association. Of course, having big news around coming out of Dubai as well with the huge 100 million investment that came their way. Point being is that a lot of chains will be involved in some form of capacity, whether that be solo or the opportunity to utilize a framework that encourages other chains to be integrated at the same time as well. You have to have a chain that's very diverse, and the opportunity for those cross-border aspects, whether it be payment-wise or cross-chain-wise, bridging mentality is really important. That's why I think Algorand is one of the top leaders in this area. Not only is it a phenomenal chain, albeit that it's still under the scrutiny of the SEC at the moment, which is crazy. I've seen all the tweets and stuff, Gensler talking about Algorand a couple of years ago, and then all of a sudden now forming it as an SEC security potential risk, etc., etc. And that's why the price was quite suppressed for some time with the Algorand token. So now we fast forward to a few months later, and everything's been looking a bit more rosier in that department for sure. But the ultimate thing here I always have that saying, and many do out there as well, don't do what they do. So, do what they say. I think I got that completely wrong, actually. Do what they do, not what they say. That's what I was meant to say. And it's the same instance with Algorand. This is a top project, top chain. There's a reason why institutional banks, governments, and governance are working with Algorand. If it was a major issue, they wouldn't be doing so. Irrespective of this SEC situation, you have to look at the broader picture here and really understand and appreciate that no matter what, these guys are going ahead, and more countries, more and more governments and banks within those countries will be using chains like Algorand, whether we like it or not. And whether the organizations that be out there that have some weird bugbear against crypto and blockchain in general, even though they're using it, it's all smokescreen, it's all theatre, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But it's really fascinating to see the development of Algorand. It's opening up its doors to so much ecosystem potential. More and more companies coming. I think it's like over 700 companies now operate and work on the Algorand network, which is phenomenal. And that's not in just taking into the equation of the frameworks that they're building for central bank digital currencies. In this instance, we talk about Holland. But look at this. This is the revenue numbers, for example, with the Netherlands at the moment of cryptocurrencies. It's growing all the time. Not gigantically year on year as such, but by 2030, it's going to be quite phenomenal. And as I said, when you use the orientation of CBDCs or stablecoins, etc., and they're built on certain chains, of course, those chains will be used for the transactions per second, and ultimately anything that builds within those ecosystems or businesses using them overall as well. So it's very early in the game, guys. We're still so early, and the adoption of blockchain is still very much misunderstood and not enough education around it at all. So you have to really think ahead. It's not just about short-term gains and things like this. You can sometimes think, hopefully, in the long-term format as well, of like the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, with this being so early. Yes, if you weren't there like I wasn't, 10, 15 years ago in crypto, the next best time is now. As they say, the best time to plant was 20 years ago, the next best time is now. And it's exactly that same principle, in my opinion, of where we are, not just with the markets in general, but where we are with the evolution and the starting point of the blockchain fourth industrial revolution, as Klaus Schwab calls it, from the World Economic Forum. So there's all these ecosystem platforms building, companies building on Algorand, which is fantastic. We've got the frameworks and everything like this. So this is one of the, or most of the main key reasons why I'm so interested in Algorand. This is an article from a few years ago, and I wanted to bring this to the attention as well, because someone told to me years and years ago, maybe like 2015, 16, about the orientation around building hubs, regionalizing communities within countries, within their own counties. Here, for example, in the UK, we have counties. You obviously have in America states, and then cities, towns, etc. And there was a conversation going around about formalizing these mini hubs, if you like. And ULEZ has come here in the UK. It's for those that are outside the UK that don't understand what it is. It's very much the orientation around supposedly trying to reduce emissions, but eventually, potentially, with the integration of CBDCs, it could stop people from driving around outside their radius, whether that be based on their social score, environmental score, whatever it might be. ULEZ is pretty much forcing everyone, or most people, to start thinking about chopping their old cars in and bringing new ones into the equation. Of course, what they're going to go for, predominantly EV, potentially hydrogen in the next few years. It's all a market mover, right? But this conversation here kind of backs that theory around regional communities and their own individual finances. So this is about the Brixton pound. Now, this actually came out conveniently way back before all these big chains came out. So they chose, Brixton here in the UK chose Algorand as its chain, and the orientation around this back in 2008 was to try and keep money within the city or the respective borough in this instance. And it's quite a unique scenario here, and quite clever in some ways, and it shows that opportunity for regionalization. I do truly believe that you're going to see a lot more of this as the years go by. So they're probably one of the earliest adopters of this psychology and theory of how we can regionalize, localize finance. And we're going to see very, very similar with the energy markets when we talk about community energy drive, prosumerability, with the use of blockchain, Web3. We talk about that a lot on the Energy Web and Power Ledger videos. So if you haven't seen those, go check them out so you understand a bit more what we're talking about there. But it emphasized that fact that we could have regionalized stable coins or CBDCs within larger framework CBDCs. You could have the digital pound, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to have a county's pound or a city or a town's pound. And it encourages people to use their local businesses, small businesses more, so on and so forth. So it's really, really interesting, and you can start building a bit of a pattern of development here, where it could go. But so we've kind of looked at some of the different countries where platforms are using the Algorand platform. We can also now look in a really macro level of what opportunities could be around the corner. And if you understand the popularization of some of these areas, and they're obviously all growing, more apartments, flats are going up as well to accommodate the influx of people in these towns and cities. It's really, really interesting. Of course, tokenomics, the economy of tokens, is on our doorstep. It's already here, but the utilization of it will be phenomenal. You can imagine eat to earn, learn to earn, play to earn, all of these things being incorporated by businesses and brands locally as well as on a national scale. It's really, really interesting. So when we look at these population numbers for a reason, it's not just Algorand. This is a prime example of what Algorand is capable of and why companies and projects are using it. But the overall spectrum is the very interesting capabilities of the economy moving into the Web3 crypto space. And we reverse that round back to the point of, why are we investing in it? Well, these are some of the key reasons, of course, and there's a multitude of other ones. But that kind of leads us nicely onto the topic of the price point of Algorand. So you can see on the chart in front of us here, this is kind of the rough region where I was purchasing Algorand, I believe, around this sort of 14-cent mark, and I did get a lot of accumulation around that really low region, around 8.7 cents. I think it was predominantly the area that I was interested in. And since then, guys, we've had over 150%, nearly 160% gain. Obviously, we haven't taken into consideration the pullback yet, but that high point back here, it was only a couple of days ago, leading up to, I think it was a high of 22.3 cents. So going from 8.7 to 22.3 is absolutely phenomenal. Potentially very close to being, three times the amount. So there was opportunities here, and that's not to say there won't be more to come in the near future. So don't think for 1 second that you've missed out or anything like that, because ultimately, when we really pull this out, you can see that Algorand came from even higher positions in the past. We go back to that old 2021 bull run all the way back here. Absolutely phenomenal, towards $3, guys. Now, if I'm just going to pull this current movement here, so from that 8.7 cent mark, if you did get into those areas, and we do pull back one day to those $3 marks potentially, or even if to these lower spectrums of 240, you're looking at a significant amount of 3,000 plus percentage gains. So you could have the argument that yes, you want to buy in an accumulative DCA fashion and get the lowest positions possible, which is absolutely brilliant, and that's what I try and do for the long term. I want to accumulate as much Algorand as possible in the lower regions, as well as potentially taking advantage on the way up and on the way down in bigger segments. It paints a picture, guys, to showcase that there is a lot of movement here. And even if we were to just stick around this existing 14-15 cent mark, still another 1,500% from its current position of recording to that previous all-time highs. Absolutely phenomenal gain opportunity in the next bull run, in my opinion, towards the end of 2024 and into 2025. But we look at this current existing price point. I'm just going to pull this across from the previous chart, measuring up from this point back here in October to currently now. You can see we tried to attack this higher region of around 23.2 cents as a fib retracement level. It's not always fully accurate, but gives you an indication of roughly where those instances of data would be. I'm just going to pull this one across as well, which takes one of the other recent low points and high points. It starts pulling in a bit more detail as well, and I'll pull that one across. So we get a bit more of a macro filter to put it back to where it was. So you can start to see, when we see these retracements, it pulled itself back. It didn't want to quite come back down to the 15.9 again. It was too soon. And that's retraced itself back to around this area here, 18.6 cents as of recording. So I anticipate in the next few days we'll see a bit of stability. We may see another uprise depending on Bitcoin's movements, but we also may see a retest of some lower areas too. Why? Because if we look at the historic data, particularly here in March, and particularly here at the lower regions of December last year, 2022 respectively, you can see the pattern is quite clear. So we've dropped ourselves back down. We've had some retaliations at some of the lower levels, and now we are entering this really interesting cycle of trying to retest these particular areas of interest where we saw new higher lows at those particular regions around the earlier stages of 2023. So that's where we're at currently. And you can start to see this bounce around effect of kind of backing up what we were just saying. So as I said, as we're recording, we're floating around this particular area here. For me personally, I sold around about, I think, 21 cents. I do have a secondary sell order at 24. It didn't quite come in, but I'm leaving it there just in case we have a rebound up to that area. But I have a retraced value purchase back in at 14.7 cents. Why? Because I was kind of trying to match up with this previous area here, and ultimately that can measure up in a couple of instances of interest in previous fashion from the last 9 to 12 months. So that's why I put those positions back in. It may not come in. I may, depending on the movements over the next few days, if not a couple of weeks, I may reduce that, or sorry, actually increase that potentially around to 16, 17 cents. So I still would have made some form of not just the profit that I've took here from the 8.7 cent mark up to here, but also the opportunity to at least accumulate a bit more on that way down somewhere. But I'm going to be a bit more patient, going to see this out for a while, because also we've got to look at the RSI indicators. If you look back 2 days ago, very high, 82 and 74 on the 14 and 28 day RSIs respectively. Now we're floating already quickly back down towards those mid regions of 60, but I would like that to come back down to around the 50, 45 region before I really maybe mess about too much with my movements of limit orders. We'll have to see how that plays out, but I am patiently waiting to see if we retest this area. Again, patience is key. I do not think this is going to happen necessarily overnight. It might scale down in one day hit and bounce back up, but I anticipate, because of the amount of money that's been coming in and out of the market the last few days, that we might need some stability here. A lot of people are paying for Christmas, and of course we've got the ETFs around the corner. So I think there's been a good run. I just feel like there needs to be a bit of stability and confidence for the next run up. And of course the leverages need to play out as well in the shorts and the longs. Let's keep an eye on this, guys. But for me, Algorand has some great opportunities still to come. If you felt like you missed these areas, don't panic too much. I do believe they will be coming back at some point. But the ultimate thing here is, if you DCA and you have a good strategy of that buying accumulation momentum, we can ultimately make the argument that regardless to whether it's 20 cents or 8 cents, there is still a long way to go. And who knows, we should hopefully be smashing through that previous all-time high, in my opinion, especially with the developments of CBDCs. We did earmark this back in August, 25th of August 2023 at 475 was one of the key areas of interest. So even if we got to the middle grounds or those higher regions, it's still a phenomenal opportunity. As you can see, it raises back up to that sort of 3,000 mark again, even from the current point, let alone the potential if we were to grab another load around the 8.7 cent mark again, like I did. So guys, that very much wraps up Algorand, a bit of thought process around Algorand in general and some of the use cases of it, and of course the price point. Thank you for watching this one. We will catch you in the next Algorand video. As I said, I'm trying to make these videos a bit quicker. I told you it wouldn't be 5 minutes. But yeah, we'll get some more out later this evening and over the next couple of days. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.